Hey guys, I have returned to talk about some fantastic JRPGs that surpassed my expectations. Some modern, some not so modern, and a few retro titles here and there, including 2 Tales games. So let's begin. Number 10, Tales of Exilia. I think some of you wonder why some JRPGs aren't in any of these videos. That's because they met my expectations, they didn't surpass them. I was expecting them to be awesome, and well, they were. But the JRPGs in these videos, including today's, I didn't know they would be this awesome. Tales of Exilia, I knew it would be solid because when I played it, I was already a fan of the series, but I didn't think it would be this damn good, quickly becoming one of my top 5 favorite Tales ever. The story, the graphics, the characters, the combat, especially the combat, which became my favorite one across the franchise. It honestly blew me away in its entirety, despite being quite the short game, beatable in about 20 to 25 hours if you stick to the main story. I remember when I had my retro store, someone sold me a PlayStation 3 Slim with 1 controller and a copy of Final Fantasy VII on the PS1. That was the first time I ever kept a PS3 for myself. The exact same day though, I saw this dude selling this limited edition copy of Tales of Exilia, mint condition. I think he wanted like $30 for it. Anyway, I couldn't believe the coincidence. Exilia was one of the very first JRPGs I really wanted to play on PS3, and to get it the exact same day I got the console, I got pretty lucky. Except the seller was a douchebag and didn't show up at the meeting place. Fortunately, it was a few blocks away from where I lived, so I got home, told him he was a jackass, he apologized, and about an hour later, we met. Got a small discount, got the game, went home, and spent the whole night being blown away by this masterpiece. Number 9, Tactics Ogre Reborn. I was never a fan of this game, and some of you already know that. I played most of its versions and couldn't get into them. I hated its stupid RNG and its dumbass level cap furiously, so a couple of hours later on each PS1 and PSP versions I gave up. Everybody seemed to love it except me. Same with Final Fantasy Tactics. So until this modern remaster happened, I didn't care any less about Tactics freaking Ogre. But a fan sent a PS4 copy of it to me. I had promised several times before that I will give it one final chance, especially if it got remastered. Well, it did, and you know the rest. So let me tell you why these games surpassed my expectations. Multiple routes and endings, I'm a big fan of that. Different characters to recruit, I'm a big fan too. Your decisions matter, the story is mature, no silly chit-chat or slice-of-life dialogue, dark themes. Yeah, but what about the gameplay? That had been the exact reason why I gave up on it. Well, the RNG and the level cap were still there, but for some reason, since everything else had blown me away, I suffered through it. I got rewarded by a serious challenge that forced me to think carefully on every map, a job system that was easier to understand and to master than before, excellent storytelling or narrative. Yeah, I finally became a fan after so many years of looking down on it. Maybe I'll say the same about Final Fantasy Tactics one day. Number 8, The Legend of Nauta. Another remaster that surpassed my expectations is this one. I played the original PSP release about 10 years ago because it was fan-translated. That's right, that version never left Japan, and I'll be honest, it let me down. The controls were fine and all, just like the music, which is actually untouchable and didn't change in this remaster, by the way. It's just the game felt generic, just like its characters and its story. I also felt some of the puzzles were very annoying, but the icing on the cake was the platforming. It just felt very dated and troublesome with a PSP controller. Yeah, about 2 hours into it I gave up and quit for good. I still thought it was a good game, but nothing special. Along came this badass remaster, making it look as if it was a remake. Gorgeous visuals, improved interface, reworked platforming, and the same mind-blowing soundtrack was back. Many quality of life improvements were there, like letting you teleport in and out of dungeons whenever, but what really surpassed my expectations was that I found out it's one of those games that just keep getting better. Sure, the beginning was a little boring, the platforming puzzles were still annoying, and the bosses felt like a chore half of the time, but for some reason I couldn't stop playing it. Eventually I got addicted to it and even beat the post-game content. Something I rarely do in JRPGs nowadays. Everything just gets better, man, even the music, surprisingly. The action, the challenge, the story, the character development, man, it's no masterpiece, but it certainly is a fantastic improvement over the original version. I'm glad I gave this remaster a chance. Number 7. Ever Oasis. I'm not really into simulation games like Rune Factory or Harvest Moon. This game isn't like them, but I didn't know that when I first heard about it. I also didn't know the director of the Mana series worked on it after leaving Square Enix. It's even considered by many as a spiritual successor. These are facts I learned out of curiosity because when I played it, I couldn't believe how charming and addictive it was. I never knew restocking stores, holding festivals, and inviting villagers to your town could be this fun. I'm serious, other JRPGs don't do it as great as this one in my opinion. Of course I knew recruiting characters was awesome, being a Suikoden fan and all, but yeah, this one also became just as interesting. Most of its gameplay relies on getting materials and delivering them, so fetch quests, right? I usually don't like that, but rarely did I feel that this mechanic was just as boring as in many other JRPGs of its kind, especially when that very same fetching increases your health during battle. It doesn't have the best controls or camera, but it makes things engaging by switching characters repeatedly and using them for different puzzles. It's a phenomenal game despite its flaws, so what I've been trying to say is that this isn't my type of RPG. I'm usually not into games like this, but I loved it! Which is why Ever Oasis surpassed my expectations. Number 6. Tales of the Tempest. Meet the true black sheep in the Tales universe. Obviously not as infamous as Cestiria, because this Nintendo DS exclusive never came out of Japan. It's been fan-translated since forever though, which is exactly how I played it many years ago. But yeah, this game back then was so rejected by many that even Namco themselves started rejecting it as well. Yeah! It was supposed to be a main title, but since reception was quite lukewarm, they pretended right afterwards, oh no, this is just a spin-off. Man, that's harsh. So can you imagine my expectations when I played this? The internet convinced me it was going to be atrocious, the worst Tales game ever. But as mostly always, the internet was wrong. I experienced this little gem by myself and got a surprisingly good game in return. Sure, it wasn't excellent or anything, nor was it one of the best Tales games ever made, but it was far better than the crapstorm people had made it out to be. A short adventure with a few characters and somewhat generic plot, yeah, so I get it. Compared to other Tales games, it just wasn't as great. But if you jump into it like I did, expecting the worst, you'll get a very pleasant surprise. The other two Nintendo DS Tales games, Innocence and Hearts, were remade for the PS Vita. This one was left to rot in absolute oblivion though, and most people don't even remember it nowadays. It's too bad. I think a remake will benefit it greatly and maybe help restore its ruined reputation. Number 5. The Greaser Remakes. Many years ago I played Warsong on the Sega Genesis, which is the first Greaser. The second never left Japan. until this remake. Warsong, I thought it was awesome for its time with outstanding music but very outdated and stupidly difficult gameplay mechanics. However, when I heard this game alongside its never-seen-before sequel were being remade in a collection for modern systems, yeah, I guess I got a little bit excited, but I watched the trailers and they looked like mobile games. So can you imagine my expectations? Still, there was a demo available for each, so I decided to check it out just to at least have an opinion and say, they're mobile looking trash. Thanks for this awful remix, Kadokawa Games. Boy, was I completely wrong. The graphics still looked low budget, that's for sure, but everything else was absolutely incredible! As I played through the first mission of the first game, the music that I had loved so much in the original blew me away here. Oh my god! So then, the art style, you could choose between the original design by Satoshi Urushihara or the new one. The interface had improved masterfully and the controls felt great, combat was still amazing, technically speaking, now with rebalanced difficulty, and the fact that you could just play through these two games over and over again to get the different routes and endings without having to restart from the beginning? Holy cow, man! In-game graphics might be generic, but they totally nailed it with the rest. I'd like to see Greaser 3 and 4 remade in the future, if possible with a better graphic style, but if it's not possible, then okay, this is fine. Number 4, Redemption Reapers. Earlier this year, a company reached out to me asking if I will be interested in reviewing this game. I didn't know absolutely anything about it. So when they did, I went in and saw screenshots of it, a small gameplay on YouTube, the trailer, and I thought, man, this looks bland and generic as hell, like an indie western RPG. Boring. Still, it was a strategy RPG with mature themes, so I also said, why the heck not? So I accepted a review code with the lowest expectations you can imagine. Before even playing it, I was ready to come over here and say, it's alright, but it's just not for me, you know? But when I started playing, I slowly began realizing I was completely wrong. That opening cinematic blew me away in a sense I definitely wouldn't have imagined. The characters seemed mature and interesting, out of the usual JRPG cliches. As I made progress, I started finding them more appealing, until I just needed to find out who had developed this game. It turned out to be a company called AdGlob, directed by Hiroyuki Kobayashi, the guy who mainly programmed the first 2 Resident Evil games, also producing some other Capcom titles, including Dragon's Dogma. The story was written by Tomokazu Fukushima, who wrote the plot of several early Metal Gear Solid games. But you know what? It could have been directed and written by total nobodies, and I still will be here telling you this. Redemption Reapers far surpassed my expectations with its dark as hell story and engaging battle mechanics. Of course, the fact that I love strategy RPGs greatly influenced my love for it. Number 3, Dead End Request 2. Oh come on man, you knew this was gonna be here. Pretty sure you're already aware this game far, and I mean far, surpassed my expectations too. I don't need to say anything else that I haven't already though, I've been talking about it all year, so I'll be extremely brief. A horror RPG with truly gruesome scenes that I can't show anymore because YouTube, and gameplay mechanics that strayed from the first game's visual novel shenanigans. As a result, it's quite a short adventure but with a brutally hard final boss. Anyway, let's move on. You knew this game will be here just because it just had to be here. It might be the poster child of JRPGs that surpassed my expectations. Hey, I think this is like the 4th video where this game and Redemption Reapers are featured together. Huh. Number 2, Star Ocean: The Second Story R. This is another one you probably already knew. It surpassed my expectations. I was all over the demo when I first played it and heavily recommended the game just based on it. But to be honest with you, I kinda held back on my expectations for the full game. Why? Because no matter how much I loved the original PS1 version, I had been somewhat resentful towards it for years. It's a stupidly hard video game, and if you don't know how to break it, I didn't back then, how to take advantage of its mechanics, I didn't back then, you're doomed to suffer through it. A long time ago, I even gave up on my second playthrough because I just simply couldn't defeat a boss. Grim memories with this game, I'm telling ya. So when I got my hands on this remake on PS5, I was still hesitant, despite having been impressed by its demo. I thought it would be just as stupidly punishing and hard as the original versions, so I went in with low expectations thinking I will probably rage quit at some point and move on. Well, I didn't, because the many quality of life improvements managed to help me with its natural chores. No random encounters, fast travel anywhere, chain attacks, difficulty settings. So I stuck to normal mode, abused the chain attacks, abused the arena when I unlocked it, abused the crafting and weapon customization, well, I guess that's too much abuse already. You get the idea. I broke the game and fell in love with it. This is definitely the best version to play of this masterpiece nowadays. Number 1. Oh man, of course this one surpassed my expectations. I don't know why I never included it in the previous videos. It isn't a Genesis or Mega Drive exclusive anymore though. It can be played in nearly every single Sega Genesis collection out there, including the one on Switch and PS4. Now, let me tell you why this game blew me the heck away. It is precisely thanks to the fact that I really disliked the original Phantasy Star. Never finished it, grew tired of its severely dated mechanics, and especially its dungeon crawling in first person with bland graphics and random encounters. Sure, the colors are pretty, I guess, but everywhere you go looks the same. So I jumped into the sequel, expecting it to be much worse. Thankfully it wasn't, it was different, but at the same time, quite tiresome to play. Without a walkthrough, I got lost plenty times, and again, with high encounter rate and huge difficulty spikes. By the time I got to the third game, the infamous one, the Black Sheep, you can imagine my expectation had been flushed down the toilet. So I went to Phantasy Star 4 thinking it will be the same punishing nightmare and unenjoyable experience as the others. I respect them, don't take me wrong, they were great for their time, but they aren't fun to play nowadays. But this fourth entry did everything right as opposed to them. Sure, still with a crap ton of encounters, but the rest was much better. Exploration improved, graphics improved, battle mechanics improved, difficulty, music, and especially story were far superior than its predecessors. And this one was supposed to be the last episode of the quadrilogy. Man, they sure went out with a blast. What a masterpiece that aged surprisingly well, and it's still badass to play nowadays. So those were 10 more JRPGs that surpassed my expectations. Do you have a bunch of them that you'd like to share? Well, there's a comment section down below. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!